Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Assalamu alaikum, my dearest brothers and sisters, and welcome to this episode of Keys to Paradise with me, your sister in Islam, Mehwish. My dearest brothers and sisters, in the previous weeks, I have been talking about the sins of the tongue. And insha'Allah, in today's episode, I will continue to speak about the sins of this organ. Allah the Exalted endowed upon His slaves uncountable endowments. He revealed in Surah Ibrahim, Ayah 34, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا, which means, should you attempt to count your endowments from Allah, you would be unable. Now the tongue is one of many endowments Allah granted His slaves. Certainly, my dearest brothers and sisters, being thankful to Allah means for one to not use this endowment in disobedience to Allah. That is, to not use the tongue in committing sins. For if a person was to do that, then they would not be fulfilling the obligatory thanking of Allah. My dearest brothers and sisters, most of the sins that a person does are from their tongue. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, أَكْثَرُ خَطَايَا ابْنِ آدَمْ مِنْ لِسَانِهِ. This means most of the sins of the offspring of Adam are from their tongues. Now this is a Sahih hadith narrated by At-Tabarani from the root of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud from our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Al-Bukhari and Muslim related from the root of Abu Hurairah that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, he said, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. This means, let the one who believes in Allah and the hereafter utter good words, or let him be silent. Now, my dearest brothers and sisters, amongst the sins of the tongue is for a person to ask other people to give him money, which he already has enough. He has enough money to satisfy his basic needs. Here, if one is solvent, it is a sin for him to beg. Now, this just doesn't mean someone standing at a street corner. No, it's not just isolated to that case. If one is solvent, or he is able to work, to find a job, to support himself, to fulfill his basic needs, but instead he begs, then in this case, that person is sinful. So for example, if someone comes to his friend, he meets him, for example, in the street or at someone's house, and he says to him, can you give me a tenner? Can you give me £100? This is prohibited. This is haram, and this is a sin. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, لا تحل المسألة لغني ولا لذي مرة سوي. This means, as narrated by Abu Dawood and others, this means the solvent one, the one who has enough money, or the one who is able to work, it is prohibited. It is prohibited for him to beg. It is not permissible for him to beg. My dearest brothers and sisters, it is narrated by Al-Bukhari and Muslim, ما يزال رجل يسأل الناس حتى يأتي يوم القيامة ليس في وجهه مزعة لحم. This is a hadith. This is a hadith, and it means the one who keeps begging from people while it is prohibited for him to do that will not have any flesh on his face on the day of judgment. He will not have any flesh on his face on the day of judgment. In this world, he faced the people begging them with no shyness on his face. Thus, on the day of judgment, as a punishment on that day, this same face that begged would be deprived of its flesh. On the other hand, my dearest brothers and sisters, the one who is poor, the one who cannot fulfill his basic needs in a way other than begging, then he is permitted to beg. However, it is better for him not to do so, whilst remaining patient and avoiding unlawful matters. In the Quran, Allah praised the people, the poor people among the immigrants of the companions who left out begging. It is mentioned in the Quran, Allah revealed, يَحْسُبُهُمُ الْجَاهِلُ أَغْنِيَاءَ مِنَ التَّعَفُّفِ. This means they looked and acted as solvent people to the extent that the one who did not know their case would think that they are solvent, The next sin that I'm going to talk about, the sin of the tongue, is for one to neglect leaving a will. So this sin is when a person neglects leaving a will that states the debts or the trusts that one owes to others, and no one else knows about them. No one else knows about them. In this context, this includes overdue zakah and other financial obligations. For instance, if one owes money to another person and no one other than the inheritors knows about this debt, then it's obligatory upon this borrower to leave either a verbal or a written will that secures the right of the lender. Similarly, if a person is entrusted with a certain item for safekeeping and no one else knows about it, then it is incumbent upon the entrusted person to leave a statement that secures the right of the one who owns the entrusted item. Now, if an upright and trustworthy person who is not amongst the inheritors knows about these debts or this trust, then leaving a will in such a scenario becomes a recommended matter. For other than the aforementioned matters that I've previously mentioned, that is, it is sunnah to write a will. As mentioned in a hadith by the Prophet ﷺ, as narrated by Al-Bukhari and Muslim, ما حق امرئ مسلم له شيء يحصي فيه يبيت ليلتين إلا وَوَصِيَّتُهُ مَكْتُوبَةٌ عِنْدَهُ. This means every Muslim who has anything about which a will is to be made should not wait 2 consecutive nights without having prepared his written will. Okay? Now it is recommended, sunnah, to write one's will even if one does not owe any money or hold any trust. Now, the next sin of the tongue is to attribute oneself to other than his father or to other than his liberator, as in the case for the slave. For example, for a person to say, so and so liberated me, naming other than his liberator. So, amongst the sins of the tongue is for one to name as one's father other than the true one. This occurs, for example, if someone says, my father is so and so, whilst he knows that this is not the case, even if the person that one named adopted him. Likewise, if the owner of a slave sets him free, it is prohibited for the former slave to claim that someone else liberated him. Now, my dearest brothers and sisters, there are certain religious rules associated to the parent-child relationship, the liberator-slave relationship. Denying such relations leads to disregarding the rules associated with them, and it leads to the abuse of the rights of the people. For example, the girl, the one who gives her in marriage is her father. So if she claims that her father is so and so whilst it's not, then this leads to a situation where other than her father gives her in marriage, whilst he is not entitled to do that. Also, it leads to a situation where other than her father inherits her, while he is not entitled to do so. And for her to inherit from someone whom she is not entitled to inherit from, etc. Now, as we've mentioned, as it's seen, religious judgments are related to this issue. Therefore, it is haram for one to claim that his father is someone other than his true father, or that his liberator is someone other than his liberator. This is why Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Man idda'a ila ghayri abih, fa'alayhi la'natullah." This means that the one who claims that his father is other than his true father is damned by Allah. Now this hadith was narrated by Ibn Majah and others. Amongst the sins of the heart, my dearest brothers and sisters, is to propose to a woman after she is already engaged to another Muslim. Now, amongst the sins of the tongue is for a man to propose to a certain woman whom he knows has already been engaged to another Muslim. Such an action, my dearest brothers and sisters, causes harm to his fellow Muslim. Now, the scenario, for example, if someone asks to marry a woman and her father accepts, and this is in the case where it's the father's acceptance is what counts, or her grandfather accepts in the case where the acceptance of the grandfather counts. If this takes place, then after this, someone else comes and talks to the family to breach this engagement, then this is amongst the sins of the tongue. For example, he may tell her, he may address her by saying, I'll give you more money. I have this and this. You'll be more happier with me. Then this is haram because it hurts the first Muslim. Except if he takes permission from him. He says to him, for example, do you accept, he asks him, do you accept that I go and propose myself? If he says yes, go ahead, then it's not haram for the second one to do this. Okay? It's not haram. Now, my dearest brothers and sisters, talking about the matters of the religion without knowledge is sinful. It's sinful. If someone gives a fatwa without knowledge, then he is committing an enormous sin. In Surah Al-Isra, Surah 17, part of Ayah 36, Allah Ta'ala revealed, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. This means, do not talk without knowledge. Do not talk without knowledge. Thus, amongst the sins of the tongue is for one to give an answer, a fatwa, to an Islamic question without having the proper knowledge. Now, the one who produces a fatwa has to be someone who is at the level of ijtihad, like Imam al-Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Ahmad, or a scholar who is qualified to deduce the judgment of the case from a text of a mujtahid, like Al-Bayhaqi and Al-Ghazali. Now, if a person does not attain any of the aforementioned two levels of ijtihad, then he is not entitled to produce a fatwa. He is only entitled to copy the fatwa of a mujtahid. Now, who is a mujtahid? I'll talk about the definition of a mujtahid. It is a person with specific qualifications. Now, amongst these qualifications is to have memorized all the verses of the Quran that pertain to deducing judgments, to have memorized the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ that deal with deducing judgments, and to be sufficiently knowledgeable about mutlaq, not restricted, muqayyad, restricted, general, specific, abrogated, abrogating and unabrogated texts, and to know for every case whether or not there was a consensus established upon it. Also, he has to be upright, trustworthy, adhere to the behavior and the ethics of the upright people who belong to his own social rank, and to have a sharp mind. Now, if one is equipped with all what I have mentioned, all of these qualifications of a mujtahid, then he is entitled to produce a fatwa according to his own ijtihad. Otherwise, as is the case of most of the Muslims, my dearest brothers and sisters, in this era, in all the eras, his only proper way is to follow the fatwa of a mujtahid or the deductions of the scholars who have the qualification to deduce judgments from the statements of the mujtahid. That is, the mujtahids within a school. Therefore, the one who is asked about a particular religious matter without having knowledge of its judgment must not neglect saying, I don't know. You say, I don't know. If you do not know, you do not know. It was reported about Imam Malik, may Allah raise his rank, that once he was asked 48 questions. Now he answered 6 of them. Out of 48, he answered 6. And the remaining 42, do you know what he said? He said, I do not know. He said, I do not know. Also, when our Master Ali was asked about a certain matter, he replied, وَبَرْدَهَا عَلَى الْكَبِدِ أَنْ أَسْأَلَ عَنْ شَيْءٍ لَا عِلْمَ لِي بِهِ فَأَقُولَ لَا أَدْرِي. لَا أَدْرِي. It means, it is very soothing, he said, it is very soothing for me to say, I do not know, when I'm asked about what I do not know. Hafidh al-Asqalani, in his book Takhrij Mukhtasar Ibn al-Hajib, related this incident. Now, my dearest brothers and sisters, giving a religious answer without knowledge is an enormous sin. Sometimes it is blasphemy, kufr. Imam al-Shafi'i, he narrated from Imam Malik, from Muhammad, the son of Ajlan, that he said, إذا أغفل العالم لا أدري أصيبت مقاتله. This means, if the scholar overlooks saying, I do not know, then it is as if he is hit on his fatal spots. That is, he puts himself in big trouble. He puts himself in big trouble. This is why there should be no consideration given to the people who say, our opinion is this or that, whilst they did not reach the level of ijtihad. Some ignorant people, what do they say? They say, nowadays it's easy to acquire the 6 books of hadith and the book of the Quran. So this enables one easily to make ijtihad. Such people are like the person who says, I'll buy 6 of the best horses, and by that I will easily become the best knight nowadays. Their statement is a result of 2 matters: ignorance and arrogance. Ignorance and arrogance. May Allah protect us from them. Now, my dearest brothers and sisters, due to the importance of this subject, the sins of the tongue, the scholars of Islam were compelled to write extensively about it. Amongst the great scholars of Islam is Imam al-Ghazali, who said about the tongue, "Al-lisanu ni'matun 'azima, jirmuhu saghir wa jurmuhu kabir." This means the tongue is a great endowment from Allah. Though small in size, its potential crime is enormous. A person may use their tongue to utter words of praise and thankfulness to Allah, for which they get reward, whilst at the same time a person may utter a word that takes him out of the fold of Islam, thereby losing all of his previous good deeds. My dearest brothers and sisters, I hope that you can join me in the next episode of Keys to Paradise, where insha'Allah I will continue to talk about the sins of the tongue. And remember the saying of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, "Man salaka tariqan yatlubu fihi ilma, sahhala Allahu lahu bihi tariqan ilal jannah." This means the one who takes the path to learn religious knowledge, Allah facilitates for them the path to paradise. May Allah make us amongst the people of paradise. And Allah knows best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.